Ozzy Osbourne is gone, the godfather of heavy metal. The wild, unpredictable, and iconic voice behind Black Sabbath has died at 76. And fans around the world are reeling. But this isn't just the story of a legendary rocker's passing, because what happened in the days leading up to his death, and the way he chose to say goodbye, left millions speechless. Just 2 weeks before his death, Ozzy stood on stage in Birmingham, delivering what would be his final performance in the very city where it all began. No one realized it would be the last time, and behind that moment was a man who had quietly been preparing to leave, not with a scandal, but with something far more powerful. This is the untold story of Ozzy Osbourne's final days, and the legacy he leaves behind. In 2019, Ozzy revealed he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a condition he had kept hidden from the public for over a year. While the world still saw him as the energetic, foul-mouthed rock star, behind the scenes he was struggling to walk, stand, and even sing. The disease, combined with a series of spinal surgeries, left him in constant pain. He once admitted in an interview that every day felt like he was on borrowed time. But despite all of that, he refused to be pitied. "I'm not ready to hang up my mic," he said, and he meant it. That stubbornness, that raw grit, is what pushed him onto that stage one last time. On that night in Birmingham, the air was electric. No one knew it, but it was the final chapter of a career that had started in that very city. "It just felt right," Ozzy said back in 2017 when talking about finishing Black Sabbath, where they began nearly 50 years earlier. The crowd cheered, sang, and cried. Ozzy smiled, waved, and walked off stage like it was any other night. But looking back, there was something different. It wasn't a retirement, it was closure. For a man who had survived everything, drugs, arrests, media chaos, and health scares, this was the way he wanted to go out, loud, proud, and on his own terms. Ozzy was never supposed to become a legend. Born in a working-class neighborhood in Birmingham, he grew up poor, struggling with dyslexia and even serving jail time for petty theft. Music wasn't a career, it was an escape. And then came Black Sabbath. Together with Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, they unknowingly created something that didn't exist yet: heavy metal. Their sound was darker, heavier, and rawer than anything before. And at the center of it all was Ozzy's haunting voice. He didn't invent metal, he became it. But the fame came with a cost. After being kicked out of Black Sabbath, most thought Ozzy was finished. Instead, he launched a solo career that would define him all over again. Crazy Train, Mr. Crawley, Bark at the Moon, these weren't just hits, they were anthems. Then came Ozzfest, a festival that launched careers of younger bands who all saw Ozzy as their inspiration. But perhaps the most surprising reinvention came with the Osbournes, the early 2000s reality show that made him a household name for a whole new generation. Suddenly, Ozzy wasn't just a rock star, he was America's favorite dysfunctional dad, and somehow, even that worked. Despite all the chaos, Ozzy never stopped being grateful. In a 2017 interview, he said, "It's been a blessing, the best life." He couldn't believe he made it. He remembered watching Elizabeth Taylor on TV as a kid and thinking she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Decades later, he'd sit in his own living room with Elizabeth Taylor. That was Ozzy, someone who always seemed to be in awe of his own life. And that humility made him even more beloved. Generations of artists credit him as the reason they picked up a mic or a guitar. To fans, he wasn't just a voice, he was the voice. Ozzy was a contradiction, wild and tender, chaotic and thoughtful. He swore like a sailor, but cried during interviews. He was a global icon who still got upset when strangers didn't recognize him. He talked openly about his regrets, his addictions, and the things he wished he'd done differently. And through it all, one thing remained: his deep love for his family. Sharon stood by him through nearly every scandal. His kids, Jack, Kelly, Amy, saw both the chaos and the kindness. To the world, he was the Prince of Darkness. To them, he was Dad. And that, in the end, was who he really was. Ozzy Osbourne didn't just shape music, he shaped culture. He He showed the world that even the most broken people can create something unforgettable, that it's possible to rise from nothing, fall hard, and still rise again. And though he's gone, his voice will never be silenced. Every scream, every riff, every wild, unfiltered moment, it all lives on. Rest in peace, Ozzy. You gave the world madness, magic, and music that will never die.